Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this time I've got a full tank review for you on the Panther 88, a tier 8 German premium medium tank that a lot of people disregard on the battlefield. I'm here to let you know everything there is to know about this vehicle and whether it's a sensible pickup or not. Firstly, I'm going to run down all of the statistics of the Panther 88, compare it to a bunch of other tier 8 premium medium tanks, and then show you some ace tanker gameplay to highlight its strengths and weaknesses. So immediately we see that the Panther 88 actually has good DPM, which is rather surprising for a tier 8 medium tank. It's 16% better than the Mutz's DPM at 1800, and even 5% better than the impressive DPM of the AMX CDC. In fact, apart from the Object 416, which is kind of more of a tank destroyer medium tank hybrid, the Panther 88 has the highest DPM of any tier 8 medium tank premium or non-premium. And of course, more DPM generally means more damage, which means more credits and experience, which is probably why you're playing a premium tank in the first place. Now, the penetration on the Panther 88 isn't as good as the Mutz. It's 203mm, but that's not bad at all when we compare it to the 59 pattern that gets 190mm of penetration. One thing to watch out for, however, with the Panther 88 is that its premium rounds are amongst the weakest, with only 237mm of penetration. When we compare those to, for example, the Mutz, it gets 259mm of penetration, which is the same as the CDC, and the STA2 gets 275mm of heat pen. And so that can certainly be one of the most frustrating things about the Panther 88, is that when you do have to face heavily armored tier 9 and tier 10 tanks, that you can't just compensate with premium rounds to go through the front of their armor. So while the Panther 88 has near best-in-class DPM and also impressive penetration at 203mm, it kind of falls off with regards to its aim time, which is 2.5 seconds. That's way worse than the STA2 and even worse than the Mutz. And this is even further made awkward by the fact that the Panther 88 has pretty bad turret traverse dispersion, at least compared to the Mutz and the STA2. But its dispersions while moving are better than the Mutz, the same as the STA2, better than the CDC, but worse than the 59 patterns. So it's disappointing that overall the gun handling on the Panther 88 is going to be worse than the other 4 premium vehicles in this comparison. But one thing the tank does have going for it is accuracy. .32 allows you to be rather reliable even at very long ranges. When the Mutz is at .36 and the STA2 is .37, it is a rather awkward sniper. Unfortunately, it's bad news for the Panther 88 with regards to elevation and depression. It only has 13 degrees of elevation, which means when you're on a downslope, it's quite hard to aim up at your opponents, or maybe when they're above you, and its depression completely sucks. 7 degrees compared to the 10, 10, 10 and 9 that the other vehicles get. But it's even worse for the Panther 88 because it doesn't even get 7 degrees of gun depression over the front of the tank, only over the side of the vehicle. And this can be incredibly frustrating for the Panther 88, only having 5 degrees over the whole of the front of your hull and having to aim over the side of your tank to be able to get that extra 2 degrees. And what this means is that now you have to expose your side armor to be able to use the maximum extent of your gun depression, lowering your effective side armor to only 100mm thick. So how about the mobility with the Panther 88? Well, its top speed limit is 46 km an hour, which is the second slowest in this comparison and 4 km slower than its rival, the Mutz. And furthermore, its power to weight ratio is the worst in this comparison, but thankfully its ground resistances are pretty darn good. Fair enough, not quite as good as the Mutz, but at least they're better than the STA2 and way better than the CDC. But then again, the CDC does get that tremendous power to weight ratio on the vehicle. And so this means that the Panther 88 is pretty much the same speed as an STA2 in a 59 pattern, but way slower than the CDC and the Mutz. And unfortunately, the vehicle also has the slowest turret traverse in this comparison at 32 degrees per second and the worst tank traverse at 38 degrees per second, which can make it rather awkward for re-engaging your opponents and keeping your frontal armor towards them. So how about the armor on this tank? Well, it's got 80mm at the front, 50 at the side and 40 at the rear, and 120 at the front of the turret, 60 on the side of the turret and 60 at the rear of the turret. Now that doesn't look very impressive compared to the Mutz, apart from one thing that is awesome about the tank, and that is the 50mm of side armor. One of the most annoying thing about the Mutz is that 30mm of side armor will get overmatched by tanks that have 90mm caliber guns. However, the Panther 88 is only going to have to worry about overmatch from vehicles that have got 150mm guns, such as maybe the E100 or other high-tier tank destroyers. All in all, the Panther 88's armor isn't ever really going to achieve much. As we can see, when you angle the armor like this, you've only got 100mm of side armor, 136mm of frontal armor, and 112 12mm of lower plate armor. Ideally, what you're going to be doing with the tank is angling like this and hoping that they ricochet off the side of your vehicle when it gets above 70 degrees. But of course, angling the tank like this means that you only have 5 degrees of gun depression, so that's something to take into consideration. The Panther does have a rather decent mantlet, however, with some areas of it going up to about 260mm of effective armor, but the turret is rather annoying as it is very fat, very flat, and as it's only 120mm, pretty much every round that hits your tank is likely to go in. Personally for me, I would far rather play with the Panzer 58 Mutz. And as we can see here, because of the shape of the Mutz's armor, it does have quite a lot of auto bounce angles that really you just don't get in the Panther unless they hit the side of your turret. Thankfully, however, the Panther 88 does get a big old slug of hit points, 1,500 to be exact, which is way better than the Mutz at 1,300, and also some rather decent view range at 390 meters, which, while not as good as the recently buffed 59 pattern, does give it 10 more meters view range than the Mutz and the STA too. So what kind of crew skills and equipment do I recommend using on the Panther 88? Well, firstly, definitely use vertical stabilizers. Definitely use a medium caliber gun rammer, and that leaves your third slot as an option between improved ventilation class 2, but I only recommend using this if you have a very skilled crew, including situational awareness and possibly recon and brothers in arms, and are willing to use chocolate on the tank. And if all of these things do not apply to you, use coated optics instead to get your view range up to a very healthy amount, probably about 460 or 470. With regards to crew loadout, the Panther uses the standard commander, gunner, driver, radio operator, and loader setup, which is very refreshing because that means that you don't have to invest using situational awareness on your commander. Players should note that this crew loadout is the same as the E50M, and so if you're a keen E50M player, they will work very happily inside a Panther 88. However, if you use a Leopard 1, or maybe alternatively you use the Mutz, then you're going to have to find a radio operator as well to be able to use in the Panther 88. So what kind of crew skills are best in the Panther 88? Well, I thoroughly recommend taking Brothers in Arms on all of your crew members. Also take Sixth Sense on your commander. Then you've got the option between using repairs or alternatively camouflage, or maybe you want to use recon to boost your view range a little bit. On your driver, it's optional whether you want to take preventative maintenance. I quite like it because the chance to be set on fire is rather high on some of these German vehicles, but if you don't mind going up in smoke occasionally, you probably want to take off-road driving or alternatively clutch braking instead. On your radio operator, you want to focus on situational awareness, and on your loader, I recommend taking safe stowage because the ammo rack on this tank does feel rather large and its armor is not super effective. So I think that about covers it. Let's see how this tank performs in some gameplay. So here we go, we are playing on Malinovka, and we are in a rather stinky matchup for our Tier 8 Premium Medium tank. We're playing against some Tier 10 vehicles and a solitary Tier 9, but Wargaming's matchmaker always, well, it never fails to impress, as we do have an extra Tier 9 tank on our team, but that doesn't seem to really make too much of a difference, because this game ends up being quite close, but oh, spoilers, I should keep my mouth shut. See how the Panther 88 does along the flat there. We do manage to get up to our top speed limit before we get going downhill at 46 kilometers an hour. And now keep an eye on the speedometer, I should say. Let's see how the tank does going uphill. So 35, nearly 40, still going very well. 35 uphill, nearly 40 going uphill again. That's rather decent. And I highlight that because we saw that the tank's power to weight ratio is far from impressive, just over 12.5 I believe, but it's those hidden ground resistances that Wargaming don't show you in the garage that really make the difference and mean that the Panther 88 actually does quite well. Now we bounce 2 standard rounds off the front of the Carnarvon, but luckily he turns his side armor to us, and we don't even really need these 2 APCR rounds, but hell, I've loaded them anyway, and our great rate of fire allows us to secure our first kill of the game. The Object 140 is zerging his way towards the west. I'm not really concerned about him. Since Wargaming changed the render system from being a square to a circle, it's not effective to engage that location from here unless you really go along the edge where the TVP VTU is, and that is rather dangerous indeed. So what are we going to be doing on Malinovka here? Well, there are a variety of positions that I think are strong for the Panther 88. Number one would be using the bush here that the AMX CDC is using. From here we can extend view range all the way across, and generally what happens is the enemy medium tanks are going to be sitting in these bushes as well. And whenever they fire, if I'm sitting in the bush, I should be able to spot them. Also from this location, you can see all of the opponents that decide to make their way up there. And I think this is an important thing to do for the Panther 88, but I'm deciding to take a little bit of a rear position because of the CDC being so up front. Now luckily, there's no artillery on the enemy team, which means that we don't have to worry about the Sky Pigs taking us out. But also that means that my view range is just that little bit less effective, right? Because when I do spot the enemy vehicles, it's unlikely that we're going to have any kind of support. Well, no support, considering that we've got no artillery on our team. So some heavy tanks are trundling up the hill. I'm just trying to scout out some effective shots. And this is another rather decent position, because you can just put round after round after round into most likely the top of these heavy tanks' turrets without them being able to get effective fire on you. From here, it's just feather, feather, feather. And remember, I'm a bottom tier tank here, and I'm a premium tank at that. Not really the most competitive tier 8 medium tank. Well, in this kind of a position, actually, I think it is rather competitive. Because, of course, it doesn't matter if you've got long aim time, because you've got a great rate of fire and you've got awesome accuracy as well. Fair enough, we can't pull off clutch shots against that AMX CDC there, but being that kind of like mid to long range sniper is a niche that the Panther 88 really does fit very well in. So here come those heavy tanks. They're starting to put pressure up on the hill. And we're going to see if we can be able to put a shot into the enemy IS-3 here. He doesn't quite want to reverse just a little bit more. Just reverse a little bit more. I tried to loop a shell over the ridge line there. Will we be able to put one into the side of his turret? Oh, come on, Panther 88. You've got 0.32 accuracy. Be wanting to hit one of these tanks. But then again, he is about 500 meters away at least. Well, 495 to be exact. So our first 3 goes at this IS-3 don't work, but there is the kill shot. Putting one into the side of the IS-3's turret and shutting him down. And those are the kind of shells that I just don't feel very comfortable making in a tank such as the STA-2 with I think it's 0.37 accuracy. And the great rate of fire on the Panther 88, it does feel like the best sniping tier 8 medium tank. A lot of people might be quick to highlight the Object 416 as I highlighted in the garage. Yeah, that's a fantastic gun. It's pretty much a tier 9 medium tank gun on a tier 8 medium tank. But the Object 416 is kind of more of a tank destroyer medium hybrid than being a pure medium. And I would say the Panther 88 is more of a pure medium. And so really if you're looking for that pure medium tank, then look no further than the Panther 88 to have the highest DPM. At tier 8 at least. And of course DPM is important in your premium vehicles, not so much in situations like this, where frankly there's not a lot going on, but I can't afford to be too aggressive. There are 2 rather competent CDCs on the enemy team who are going to be spotting me across the way. If I go here, I'm likely to be spotted, because remember these bushes just dominate each other, and it's quite likely they're waiting for the TVP VTU to put a shot in, and there you go, I get spotted and I have no idea what it was, and it was most likely one of the CDCs, probably from there, or alternatively, gosh, you know what? I have no idea where I got spotted from there in retrospect. It definitely wasn't the IS-7. You know what? It must have been the CDCs. The CDCs must have been spotting me from the bushes. There they are. The TVP finally managed to spot them. And then I get forwards. Think about going forwards to be able to put some pressure on him. But this IS-7 just continues to be advancing towards us. And right now I'm just feeling a little confused. When you're in your tier 8 support tanks in your high tier matchups, although when we look at it, 3 of the enemy tier 10 tanks have already got themselves killed, so this isn't looking like a high tier matchup anymore. But when you're playing these kind of support roles and you're kind of divided about where to go, it can be rather tricky indeed. Take a look at the god-awful gun depression of the Panther 88 over the front of the tank. 5 degrees. I would have to turn my tracks to the side to be able to get the 7 degrees of gun depression over the side. And gosh, that AMX CDC, who I thought was with his buddy, has actually completely flanked around now. So the TVP on my team kills the CDC towards the center part of the map, and now that means that we can hopefully try and hunt this CDC down towards the western flank. But it looks like I'm completely unnecessary as a CDC turns on itself, takes him out, and gosh, you know what? 6 minutes into the game and I'm on 300 damage. You guys might be thinking, are you ever going to do anything in this replay? And frankly, I'm thinking that too now. And so I felt in the game, all right, let's do this. It's time to get something out of this game, right? And we're actually down by a tank now. We're down by a tank. But luckily for us, we do have 2 tier 10s left. But then again, they've got a tier 10 and a tier 9. And I am going to go and try and brawl with a tier 10 heavy. Now, this isn't something I would usually regard. I'm not using the Panther 88 very effectively here, but I feel like I need to spot for my allies, I need to dig him out of that position, and we need to progress before we get flanked. Put one into him. Unfortunately, you saw the bad gun depression on the tank there. I was unable to be able to depress the gun enough to shoot the low profile of the IS-7 and hit his tracks. But this is where this tank just totally rocks, right? Look how many rounds we can put in so quickly. I've got a very skilled crew in this tank. I've got brothers in arms. I think I'm using my Mutz crew. I'm also using chocolate. I got a gun rammer. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm using vents as well on this tank, maybe instead of coated optics. And so that means that we can just absolutely blitz our way through the enemy team. And this is where the Panther 88 just comes into its own. That crazy rate of fire, 8.7 rounds a minute. When you combine that with a tank gun rammer, the vents, a really skilled crew, It just feels to have so much more DPM than all of the other tier 8 medium tanks. So we take a hit there. Who was that one from? I think that was probably getting shot twice by the IS-3. Well, sorry, we got shot once by the T-34 and once by the IS-3. But we managed to pick up our 4th kill of the game. We took out that IS-7, we flushed him out, and now we've taken control of the map, which is very, very important. So that allows us to flank the opponents rather than them encompassing us. So from this position, I'm not going to be too aggressive. I'm just going to try and look for easy shots into the side of the IS-3. So we're able to take his tracks off there, but it looks like he has a repair kit as he manages to put the tracks back on. But we take them off once again. And from here, I'm not going to be able to spot the IS-3 through the bushes, and so I decide to try and advance to be able to spot him and then be able to continue my onslaught. So we're in a 3 versus 3 engagement here, but I'm not too worried because I'm hoping that the T-57 Heavy and the AMX CDC are going to be able to carry this one for me at least. Well, and there you go. T-57 Heavy puts a good side shot in. Undoubtedly, that was my spotting. And it's very easy to forget when you're playing kind of like this mid to long range sniper role that you do actually have rather good view range, and you can still play that support spotting role that maybe some of the faster medium tanks would play, right? But the Panther 88, it just doesn't feel like it's really that good at the kind of shoot and spot and work the ridge lines and maintain the view range for your team. But here we go, I spot the Yag Tiger as I make my way in, and I decide to flank him hard. Little do I know that the IS-3 was sitting at the back, but hopefully he's not going to have enough rate of fire. But then again, he is an IS-3A, so he might be able to get a shot in. Luckily he doesn't. That was a bit of a brash play by me, but I wanted to try and get the Yag Tiger to turn to be able to then take the pressure off the T-57 Heavy, who seems to now be firing high explosive rounds at the Yag Tiger. What's up with that? Why is he firing high explosive rounds? Maybe he's running out of ammunition for all I know. Anyway, I'm not complaining because I'm getting to put round after round into the Yag Tiger. There's my 5th round, 1,144 damage done to him. And it's very likely that I'm spotting all of this for the T-57 Heavy as well. Now we're up to 3,000 damage done. This is looking like a much more healthy game for a premium medium tank in a tier 10 matchup. And we've secured 5 kills. The T-57 Heavy is actually, I think, telling me that he's run out of ammunition right now. He's firing high explosive again. I do not know what is up with that T-57 Heavy, but I guess I was just thanking my lucky stars that he didn't manage to kill the IS-3A with his high explosive rounds, and we finish him off, securing a top gun for us. So while very little happened for us early on in this game with the Panther 88, where I was trying to play that support role, not risk my health, and just hoping that I was going to finally get a chance to use the crazy DPM that this tank has, it just frankly didn't come. But more often than not, the Panther 88 is going to be very effective in positions like this, and I would be surprised if I wasn't able to pull off 1,000, maybe 1,500 damage. But then we finally got to risk our hit points, took out the IS-7, provided some good view range for our team to enable them to stop the enemy who was still caught napping in their base. And as we're going to see in the post-game stats, what might seem like a rather mundane game for the Panther 88 can be highly lucrative. So this was 7,000 experience for our triple, netting me my first ace tanker badge in the Panther 88, 1,505 base experience points for only doing 3,000 damage, but 2,323 support as well. And even though we fired a few premium rounds in this game, we still made 94,000 credits profit, showing you that you don't have to have an absolutely incredible massive game in the Panther 88 to be rewarded with a hell of a lot of crew training, as well as a big credit income. One thing that should be mentioned, however, is that we took 3 hits and all of those penetrated, and as I mentioned, the Panther 88's armor is rather big, fat, and just kinda useless really, and I can't imagine it actually bouncing anything apart from maybe some tier 6 vehicles unless it gets its armor to a ridiculous angle for an auto ricochet. And here we can see why the T-57 Heavy resorted to firing high explosive rounds at the end of the game. He only had 2 rounds left in his tank, whatever type they were. So while there are a bunch of things that I love about the Panther 88, and that is its top class DPM and fantastic accuracy at 0.32, combined with what feels like a crazy experience coefficient, there are also some aspects about the tank that really don't make me want to recommend it to anyone. Number 1, the armor is just not capable of really handling itself at tier 8, both with regards to the hull and the turret armor, and every round that hits your tank is pretty much going to go in. So you just got to think of it as a big 1500 hit point XP pinata when you're shooting these tanks, really. Also, I find the way that the gun depression works on the tank immensely frustrating. Only 5 degrees over the front and not even that excellent 7 degrees over the side does make this tank feel rather awkward indeed. And being lucky enough to own a Mutz, I would far rather play that tank over this vehicle any day of the week. But then again, maybe you're more of a mid to long range player and you like the kind of sniper role. Maybe you like your Panther or your Panther 2 and you're looking for something to crew train or just make a load of credits in. Then maybe the Panther 88 will be for you. But I think if you only had to pick one, it would have to be the Mutz, as frankly the small advantages that the vehicle has don't outweigh the negatives. But one thing's for certain, if you're engaging an enemy Panther 88, you should totally respect its rate of fire, otherwise it's going to pick you apart rather quickly indeed and most likely outtrade you. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this tank review, or maybe it was just useful to you. If it was, please consider giving the video a like down below, it really helps the channel out. And let me know what you guys think about the Panther 88 in the comments down below. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you have both this and a Mutz? And what would you recommend for a player who only wanted to have one tier 8 premium medium tank? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.